of the season, and I think it's really a testament to the topic and to the farm. And I'd really like to thank the Dicingers for having us out to their farm. And every farm that we go on, you really get to see the inner workings of the farm, and it's really great for the farmers to share with you and to show you what they've learned. And I think it's a great learning opportunity for everyone. So we really appreciate you opening your farm to us. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to the Dicingers.
We want to thank all of you for coming. I feel a little bit overwhelmed. We were expecting 20 or 30.
We're blessed. Thank you for coming.
I wanted to start out just with a quick history of the farm so that you would know how we actually got started in winter growing. Our farm is a partnership between my brother John and myself, and right now John and his family are down in Honduras for 3 months until the middle of January. So I'm stuck with this on my own. But he was the one who started the farm, and that was about 12 years ago. He was a teacher, and he felt the need to, he was looking at the kids in the classroom and just asking himself, are my kids going to end up like this? And if not, am I going to do something different? And so he decided to quit teaching, and he didn't know what he was going to do when he quit, but he was living here there's a log cabin down there, and the farm itself belonged to my parents. I guess I need to back up a little bit. Our dad is a medical doctor. He was born near Dixon and grew up in this area, went to school and went away, and we grew up in Southern California. So we would come back here, for visits to family and that sort of thing. But that was it. Anyways, when Dad retired, he decided to retire back here, and Mom and Dad found this land and bought it. Nobody in the family was thinking about farming. Mom and Dad weren't. None of the kids were. There were 4 of us kids. Nobody was thinking about it. It was a beautiful piece of property, and they liked it, and they made what they felt was a ridiculous offer, and it was accepted, and so they bought it. After they bought it, John moved here and got a teaching job in a local church school, and he taught for 2 years, and as I said, he decided to quit. He didn't know what he was going to do when he quit, and for the next couple of years, he was just doing odd jobs, whatever came up. He thought he had something lined up, and then that would close up, and he'd try something else, and that wouldn't work out, and he didn't know what he was going to do. Finally, it just occurred to him that there's land here. I wonder if I could really farm. That was kind of a radical idea for us. As I said, we grew up in a professional home, and nobody was thinking about farming. But he decided to give it a try, and he decided to start with strawberries. He was looking for something that would give a high return on a small acre. He started out with strawberries, and that was after 3 years of trying and getting a little bit better and a little bit better, but a lot of hard knocks, he decided that it was either going to be sink or swim. And he took out a second mortgage on his house, put in irrigation lines, built the greenhouse, the top one over here, fixed up a bathroom and area to take in yew pickers, and planted 1.5 acres of strawberries. That year the strawberries were the prettiest looking, best looking, healthiest plants and berries he'd ever had. And he did happen to sit next to a reporter from the Tennessean on a flight. He said, well, if you ever want a story, here's my card. He said, this is the time. So he called her up, and she came out and featured the farm on the front page of the lifestyle section. And so when the first day that the U-Pick opened up, my dad was out here directing travel. Amazing, John and Sam, you know, really going to pay off the debt in our first season, and then it'll be clear sailing after that. About 2 days later, it started raining, and it rained for the next month. And so they didn't, even if there's a 20% chance of rain, people aren't going to want to drive an hour out of Nashville to pick strawberries. And they roped off the bottom.
The locals were so surprised that we were the first organic strawberry farm here in Jersey. And they said nothing to grow here but goats with cleats on their feet and trees. And so they were just looking askance at us. It was the most beautiful strawberry that we had to take people and take out rock strawberries because the disease in the field is tragic. So it was definitely not possible.
So, when June came, John was thinking, what am I going to do? You know, I've got a family to feed, we've covered our costs, but I don't have anything to take us through the winter. So, he had been reading Eliot Coleman. He'd been reading Eliot Coleman, and he decided that maybe he could do a winter CSA. We're real fans of Eliot Coleman. You're going to hear quite good about him. This is his first, for those who don't know, this is his first book, The Four-Season Harvest. And that is what inspired John. He decided he would start a winter CSA. He had time to do that. We start planting for our winter crops in July. We start seeding for them. So he did have a large mailing list, and so he let everyone know what was happening, and he got, I think it was about 26 customers for the first season. And that's where we started. So we're now starting our 9th winter season with a winter CSA. This year we're looking at about 100 and we're close to 130 families signed up. Yeah.
And diversification is really the key that the guys felt was going to help us if we lose the crop, that we could rely on another.
So and that's been a huge blessing, because we try to grow as much as we can, as much variety as possible, and I like to tell everyone, every year we have failures, but when you're growing a wide variety of things, it doesn't hurt you like that strawberry crop loss did. So we're sold on the idea of market gardening, not putting all our eggs in one basket. we are doing the CSA. This year, for the first time, we also did a summer market garden. And we just had a small CSA, and we did a few farmers markets. And that was a good experience. We're looking at making our farm a year-round farm now. It is challenging. We're feeling that it would be very difficult to do it if we weren't the two of us together. For one family to do it year-round, I think would be.
Farming. That's pretty, first male apprentice, and that was pretty exciting. The wedding was on the farm in April, and his farm is called Footstool Farm. And it has a little story behind that name. But, so as we have more youth needing incomes and wanting to farm, we felt that he was a good summer, so to say. And so we're working together.
So, I just wanted to say that we do have 3 Elliott Coleman books here that we can sell to you if you're interested. If you don't have them already, I'm sure a lot of you do already, but you'll hear us referring to the second book he wrote is The New Organic Grower. We got our first movable hoop house design out of that, and I'll be telling you more about that later. And then he, of course, just recently came out with the Winter Harvest Handbook. It's a beautiful book. There's beautiful colored pictures in it. It will make any gardener drool. So, the plan for, let me just give a little logistics here too. We have a restroom up in the barn here, and so if anyone needs that, you just go in the white doors, and it's on your right. It's marked. We are going to spend a bit of time here looking at these 2 fixed hoop houses and some general concepts with hoop houses. Then we're going to move over to the movable hoop houses over here, and we'll look at some specifics on them. And then we're going to go to fields that we have across the road where we are using floating row covers and quick hoops. And we'll explain about that and another hoop house idea that we have that we're going to be trying over there. Okay. My personal history. Okay, I have as we said, my dad's a medical doctor, but he had a special interest in public health and international health, and that influenced me. I got a master's degree in public health with an emphasis in international health, and my wife did too.
And we dreamed of going overseas and working among the poor and underprivileged.
So, and that's what we did. As soon as we were married while we were in school, and as soon as we finished school, we went overseas, and we spent 16 years working in Sudan and Tanzania and Yemen, managing community health and development programs. So that was very fulfilling, and I really enjoyed it a lot. But
very stretching.
Yeah, it was at times very stressful also. But somebody was telling me recently that, I was telling them about that, and they said, that must have been very fulfilling, and I said, yeah, it was. But what I'm doing now, I feel, is more whole than anything I've done before. And I think it has to do with just dealing with very fundamental things, working in the ground, being surrounded by family, and I don't know, it's just a good life. I love it.
Ed says as he comes home up the hill, he smiles inside and outside himself, just walking under the clouds and feeling the most satisfied.
My wallpaper changes every day.
Birds sing. We actually have 4 generations on the farm. Our married daughter is here as well, and we have 3 grandsons. So we're very blessed. And Paul is here. He made our website. He does a lot of the communication for the farm. The youth are expanding our horizons tremendously with flower growing and mechanics and many different areas.
I want to point out Samuel Echmandia here in the overalls, and he's helping us in John's absence, he and his family. And then Philip Weigel back here in the gray T-shirt, he's interning with us right now. So if you have questions, you can talk to them as well as to me. Starting out, I want to, when I was starting, there are all these names. You have hoop houses and cold frames and high tunnels and greenhouses, and I was confused. What's what? And I discovered it isn't quite so confusing, at least for us. And I think there is kind of a gray area in all of those names. But for us, a greenhouse has a heat source, and anything else is a hoop house or a cold frame or whatever, high tunnel, whatever you want to call it. There's a whole list of names out there, and they all mean the same thing as far as I can tell. And you can have a whole variety of different structures and shapes, and 1 layer or 2 layers of plastic, a whole bunch of different options, and it's still not a greenhouse because it doesn't have a heat source. But a greenhouse has a heat source, and generally it will have 2 layers of plastic at least, or some insulation, something like that. When you're wanting to build a hoop house, the first thing that you want to think about is where you're going to put it and how you're going to orient it. We feel that there's some discussion. Do you want to orient your house north and south, or do you want to orient it east and west? And some people say one thing, some another. We actually have hoop houses oriented both ways on the farm here, and we have reasons for doing that, and we'll get into that. It is important to orient your hoop house one of those ways, just to maximize the sun. So, we don't advocate just haphazardly throwing a hoop house in however you want to do it. I really strongly encourage it to either be run east and west or north and south. The advantage of a hoop house running north and south is that you get eastern sun in the morning and then western sun in the evening. And so I think it probably gives you the most even coverage, especially in the winter. But a hoop house running, and by the way, for us, this is south and that's north. So our valley pretty much runs east and west. So if you're oriented east and west, you will get, in the winter especially, you'll get a lot of sun exposure on the south side, but whatever's on the north side is not going to get the sun that it wants. And so, even though, see, we've got these two hoop houses running north and south, but our movable ones are all oriented east and west. The reason we oriented them that way was just because of the lay of the land. That we're on a slope, and it just wasn't practical to make a pad running north and south. But what we have done is we have oriented all our beds in those hoop houses north and south. We feel that that's the most critical thing, is to orient your beds north and south, however you orient your hoop house. The next thing I'd like to mention is the site preparation. We have heard of people and seen some people who just put their hoop house, up wherever it is, and don't really prepare a site or do some minimal preparation. I think that's fine if the land doesn't have too much of a slope. But we have preferred to prepare a level pad. We just feel like it's going to work better. And I guess my brother and I have slight perfectionist tendencies, and we haven't worked those out, so we just like to do things how we feel is right. But we do feel that it's very critical to make sure that you have good drainage around your hoop house, whether it's level or not. You want to have good drainage. Part of the reason for having a hoop house is so that you have a dry area to work in the wintertime. For us, probably starting somewhere in December up through February, the ground is just wet outside and you can't work it. But a hoop house provides us a place where we can work the ground, and you just don't want it wet in there. So you can see that we have leveled pads here, and we've leveled a third pad over there. We hope someday in the future to put another one there. And we've made a swale in front that provides drainage to go around, so that we won't have water running in the hoop house. The next point I want to talk about is the actual design of the hoop house. You notice we have one Quonset design here, and then we have the Gothic arch. You'll notice on the farm we only have one Quonset design. There's a reason for that. Number one being, we don't like walking down a row like this, and that's what you have to do on the sides with the Quonset design. Secondly, we really believe that if you're going to build a hoop house in this part of the country, you ought to have roll-up sides. I just don't see any sense in having fixed sides here, because it gets so hot in the summer, unless you just want to close it up and leave it closed all summer long. That can solarize your soil, and there's some good things to that, I guess. But we want to use ours in the summer too, so we roll up the sides, and that I don't know what to call it, the purlin that we roll the sides up to, not really a purlin, but the stick along there, that catches condensation that comes off the roof, so it comes down to that edge and just drops straight down. So if you're wanting to have a bed underneath there, it's not usable. Or if you have a path under there, you've got water dripping on you while you're working in there. It's just not pleasant. So we really prefer to have a straight side up to 6 feet, and then the other reason for the Gothic arch is that it's going to shed snow a lot better, and you're just not going to have the worries of a collapsed greenhouse as much as with this design here. I've mentioned the roll-up sides. You notice that we have put a little wall at the base of each roll-up side. Our reason for doing that is to cut the wind coming into the hoop house, so that the plants have a little protection. It also keeps critters out. You know, the rabbits have a harder time getting in, that sort of thing. You notice we have two different methods of rolling up the sides. I just want to show you. This is a very nice crank that easily but slowly rolls up your curtain. It costs about $200 to get the whole mechanism. And this one here, we have it's just PVC pipe. It does have to be manhandled a little bit more, but it very easily and quickly rolls up your plastic. And it costs less than $5. So we have one hoop house equipped with those, and thought that was good enough. You'll notice also that we have a special fabric material on the baseboard and the roll-up curtain here. We've done that because we do get a lot of wear and tear on the plastic on the sidewall. On the base there, when you're trying to weed eat around it, if you've got plastic, you'll tear it up pretty easily. Or, you just have to be very careful. The other thing is that we use wiggle wire channel to secure our plastic. And when in the wintertime, we'll put the sidewalls down and we'll wiggle wire them in place. And the wiggle wire tends to tear up the plastic. You can use it for several seasons, but it'll eventually tear out the plastic there. So this other material will last quite a bit longer. So we're hoping to retrofit all of our hoop houses with material like this. I feel like this stuff here is maybe a little bit too fancy. It's very nice. It's pretty expensive. But we have some cheaper material that we've used on these ones, and I think it'd be very adequate. You can see that we have elected to frame in our end walls. Some people want to get a tractor in there. We've decided that we like to work our beds by hand, and we've just decided not to do that. We did make it big enough we can get a tiller in there if we need to, but it's just a choice we've made. We did, when we bought this hoop house, it had a fabric end wall with a zipper on it. That's a mistake. Don't even think about one of those. It just, the wind, played havoc with it, and it was no good. You can see that we used wood on the end wall here, and also on the piece that goes along that the roll-up side goes up to, and then the base there, the wind block that wood is rotting. You'll see on the other side there, it's starting to come out. We're in the process of replacing the wood in our hoop houses. That's a mistake. You can see that hoop house over there that doesn't have any plastic on it. That's because last spring the wood that was holding on the side, that was holding the plastic cover on, rotted and just the whole thing blew off. So we're retrofitting that whole hoop house.
And how long ago did you make that? It wasn't very long.
I think it's been 4 years.
Yeah. What are you replacing it with?
We're replacing it with metal. You can see we didn't use any wood on. This is our most recent one. We didn't use any wood on it at all. And we used on the end wall we used 2x2 galvanized tubing. On the side walls we used 1x2. And we used 1x2 on the base as well. On this one over here, the company that sold it sold a what do you call it? A plastic wood, for the baseboard. That stuff just snakes all over the place, and we don't like that either. So we're just using the 1x2 metal on the base here. I think that's another thing that we feel is important is a nice large vent at the top, and we have made our vents with a center pivot. You can see this one over here. Again, you can see the disadvantages of wood there, but you can see how it pivots, and you can buy these arms that are temperature activated, so you don't have to have any power to it, and they just open it and close it according to the temperature. So having that good ventilation up top is really essential, and if you have nice wide open sides, you can keep your greenhouse a decent temperature even in the summer. We feel like if you're going to have a hoop house, you might as well maximize it. And so we grow produce in ours all winter long, and then we grow tomatoes and cucumbers and eggplant and things like that in the summer in the hoop house. It gets pretty hot, and in the middle of the summer, I think we've lost tomato production because of the heat. But the tomatoes did good in the spring and the fall. We don't have any shade cloth. We're participating in the TAEP grants, and we've gotten approval for that for this year. We just haven't purchased it yet, but we believe in that. One thing I'd like to say is that this hoop house here is the result of an EQUIP grant combined with TAEP, and it's fully covered that way. So that was a huge blessing. We appreciate Greg helping us on that. He's our local EQUIP representative.
Would you mind letting him talk about that just for a minute?
Okay. Would you like to?
Folks don't know what that is.
Our EQUIP program has an organic component that provides practices like the hoop house and other organic practices for either certified organic producers or producers that are transitioning to organic. And real quick, the requirements is maximum cost.
Closer to your
I'm sorry. Maximum cost share is for 2,178 square feet, and this one exceeds that, but that's the maximum they'll pay for. And I think there's going to be quite a bit of changes to the program for this coming year. But last year the normal rate was $1.75 per square foot. I've got some applications and other information in the truck. If you want to see that after we're through, just come see me.
So, as he said, this hoop house exceeds what EQIP will cover, but TAEP is a matching program, and so we're matching the TAEP match requirement is being provided by EQIP so that it's fully covered. I think that's mainly what I want to say on these fixed hoop houses. Do we have any questions? Yes.
How long are those raspberries going to be in that hoop house?
Oh, yeah. I just want to say one thing. I have prepared what I'm wanting to say, focusing on the hoop houses, but feel free to ask, to look at and ask questions about what you see growing. I didn't know how to cover winter growing at the same time as the hoop houses. So just ask any questions you want, and if I can answer, I will. But the raspberries here, we're hoping to carry them through into December.
And then you're going to move the plants out of there?
And then, normally you would take your raspberries for several years, but we have decided we're going to try annual production, because we can take them out and we can make money on the hoop house during what would be the dormant period for the raspberries. So we'll be growing stuff in there until April, and then we'll replant our raspberries.
Okay. So you planted those this April?
We planted these in April. Yeah. So, yes.
Do you have experience with different plastics? There's a infrared plastic, there's a incandescent plastic. Have you experimented any?
We are using the anti-condensate.
Okay.
Plastic that has that film on the inside.
And what has been your experience? Have you used that is not advertised as incandescent?
Yes, we have. And when you have condensation on the inside of the hoop house, I think it cuts down on the light. You get better light to your plants if you have the anti-condensate, because it.
How many years has it lasted? Have you been able to tell?
I believe it's rated for 4 years, and we often take ours 5, 6, beyond. I mean, generally, we count on taking it longer than what it says. But,
Do you know how thick is the plastic? How many mils?
It's 6.
And you talked about double and single layer. Are these all single?
Yeah, all of our hoop houses are single except for the greenhouse up there, and it has a double wall roof and end walls, but the sides are not. I do want to say something. On that one we got it with drop down sides, and we don't recommend those. We've redone it with roll up sides. We like roll up sides a lot better. The strings on the drop down sides wear out, and it's just a pain to maintain it. So we like this system here, and I think we're going to stick with that.
So you have double. Oh, I'm sorry.
Are the verticals cemented into the ground? Are they just in the ground, or are they just on top of the ground?
I think we cemented every other one. We didn't do all of them.
A couple feet in the ground?
Yeah.
So you say one down there is double wall on the roof, and then just a single roller.
This one over here, yes. The end walls are double also, and the roof.
How long is your delivery season for your winter CSA? Start delivery?
We've been starting we're still trying to sort that out, but we've been starting somewhere the end of October, beginning November. The 1st of November is the latest that we start. We've often started about the middle of October, and we take it through. We've had a hard time figuring out if we want to take it through the end of April or through May, because we do strawberries, which come on in May, and it's kind of hard to do strawberries and the CSA. But we're looking at next year starting because we're starting to go year round. We're looking at quarterly seasons. You know, January through March, April through June, and just like that, and people would just sign up for 3 months at a time.
This year we're going to go through the middle of April, which will allow us to put strawberries in the boxes at the last of the season, and we put raspberries in at the beginning. And then we'll start our summer season at the beginning of May 1, actually, and go through September.
Yes.
Is there a particular place where you recommend that we purchase them? Or can it just be like a general place?
I can tell you where we have purchased ours. We purchased this one from Farm Tech, and we purchased all of the ones on that side over there from Atlas. And this most recent one we purchased from Scenic Acres in Kentucky. They're a Mennonite family business that has just started, and we're happy. We were happy with this. They're a little bit cheaper than Atlas. We really like Atlas a lot. We felt that this one it was cheaper than Atlas in both senses of the word. But
That was your first one.
Pardon?
That was your first one, right?
Well, the first one was the greenhouse, and then this one came next.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we made the movable ones, and then finally this one here.
Did the tubing come from the same place too?
Yes.
Or they provided that also?
Yeah. I was thinking that we could get it locally, and I found you really cannot. We have a metal fabricating company just down the road, and they sell square steel tubing, but they said they don't deal with galvanized, and if we wanted, we could have somebody galvanize it in Nashville, but that's going to be expensive.
Did they set it up as well? Scenic Acres set it up?
No, we set it up. I don't think they'll do that. I don't know about other companies if they will or not.
Do you need a crane to set it up?
We use the bucket on the tractor. The bows we actually just put together on the ground. John wrote up some tips on hoop houses, and he mentions the bow construction. That you want to have a bow with as few pieces as possible, because at least for us, we don't have flat ground to put it on, to put it together on. If you have a football field or something where you can put your bows together, then that would be nice. We don't have that luxury. So the more pieces you have, the more likely you are to end up with a bow that kind of snakes around. So. Yes.
Do you envision putting shade cloth over the top of the plastic? How does that work? Does anyone know? Just putting your shade cloth over the top of the plastic?
Yes.
Or take the plastic off? Or how does
No, you put shade cloth on top of the plastic.
it won't injure, reduce the life of the plastic?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't have experience.
It actually
It does.
extends the life of your plastic, seriously.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because you're keeping all the summer rays on it.
Yeah. So you've had experience with it?
10 years
Yeah.
plastic.
Really?
Wow, that's fascinating.
We've had shade, I very reluctantly take it off, even in the wintertime.
Okay.
You would be surprised when you get yours covered, and it'll come. You'll have a hailstorm.
Yeah.
And you watch. Where the shade cloth is, you won't see any damage.
Huh.
Where it isn't, you'll see it. It looks like a little kid went along and poked it. Didn't poke holes through it, but then it is.
Yeah.
They really protect it.
Interesting.
It really surprises you.
Huh.
But like I say, we've got one big house that's pretty close to 10 years now flat.
Interesting. Wow. That's good. Yes.
On your fixed houses here, do you take the plastic off to weather them, or do you solarize to fumigate? Do you close it up tight, or do you take the plastic off?
We've tried some of both. In other words, we just recently, last summer, we changed the plastic on this one, and what we did is we took the plastic off at the end of the season and just let it be in the weather until the late in the fall, and then we covered it. We have also tried solarizing in this one, but we haven't done either of those things extensively. Part of we'll get into this more when we talk about the movable ones, but part of the idea on the movable is that you're allowing the soil to be more exposed to the natural elements. We're not sure how important that is. A number of years ago, I was talking to an organic grower. It was actually in Norway, but they had a hoop house that they'd been growing organically in for 8 years or 10 years, something like that, for a long time. And I asked them, do you have soil disease problems after growing that many years? And they were surprised that I was asking a question like that. They'd never experienced anything. And recently we've talked with other people, and we're starting to get a sense that maybe if you do really practice good soil health and rotation of crops and just try to keep a healthy soil, it may not be such an issue. But it just makes sense that exposing it to the elements, there seems to be something good in that. But there are other reasons for movable besides that, and we feel that the other reasons are still very significant.
Could you talk a little bit about a typical rotation in your fixed tunnel? I know you're just starting to get into summer production, but
we do our rotations according to family groups. So we do brassicas. That's your mustards, a lot of your Asian greens, your kale, broccoli, cabbage. All of those things are in the brassica family. So we lump all of those together. We lump all of the lettuces together, and then we have another group that we call European greens that we include the arugula and mosh, claytonia, or miner's lettuce, a number of those kind of greens in that one. And then we have a fourth group, which is spinach and beets and Swiss chard, that family. So we do our rotations for the winter growing according to those different groupings. So in here we're going to have 3 beds of each one. And as through the winter, we're growing, let's say lettuce, for example, we're growing lettuce from transplants, and we're also growing baby lettuce that we direct seed in the soil. But as we take one bed out of, we've harvested all the lettuce off of it, we will follow it with one of the other families. so that we're not growing lettuce on lettuce. And so, you know, as we take out a bed of lettuce, we'll maybe plant spinach, and then where we were finishing spinach off, we'll be putting in the European greens, or you know, we'll be doing like that inside our hoop houses. As I said, in the summer we tend to grow tomatoes. We will have raspberries in one of these hoop houses, but most of the other ones are full of tomatoes, cucumbers, eggplant, peppers, things like that. So, yes.
What kind of fertilization are you using?
What kind of fertilization?
Are you using organic fertilizer or what?
Yeah, we're certified organic, so
We're buy organic fertilizer?
We depend primarily on compost, and we would like to make it all ourselves, but we have not reached the stage of being able to do that. And so we buy organic mushroom compost. It actually comes from Pennsylvania, and we buy a tractor trailer load, and it's actually cheaper than any compost we can find locally here for the same quantity. So we like the quality of what we're getting. It's good. I think we ought to move on over to the movable hoop houses. You can go around either way, but we're going to start out between the first one and the second one over on the other side. Here, as I told you, we're just entering our 9th season of winter growing. Prior to this time, we have not had this greenhouse heated. So I'm just wanting to make the point that you do not have to have any heated structure to do winter production. But there are definitely advantages to having heat, and we believe that it's worth it. For one thing, your germination is going to be better, and your seedlings will grow better if you have a heated place to start them out in. But you can do without it. And that just wanted me to mention how we start our starts. And that, would you mind holding this in my... We like to use soil blocks. Elliot Coleman, again, is a promoter of soil blocks. and we have used them, well, since the beginning, and found that they work very good for us. They are probably more labor intensive than filling trays with a soil mix, but we have tried several times comparing started in trays versus started in soil blocks, seeding them at the same time with the same mixture, and there's a visible difference in the health and the size of what started in the soil blocks. So that's convinced us, and we just keep doing the soil blocks. What we do is we just make up a mix in a tray like this, and then you wet it so that it's wet enough that if you squeeze it tight, you can get a little water coming out of it, but you don't want it soupy at all. Then you punch your blocker, and we usually have to do it several times. You want to get your mix compacted in the blocks here, and then you press down on this, and it just pushes the blocks out. So we set up trays and just set the blocks out into the trays, and then we're ready to seed. You can look around in here, and we've got a lot of trays out there. We had a problem several weeks ago with mice getting in and eating the seeds out of our trays, so we got behind. We seeded, the mice ate it, we seeded again. I guess I hadn't figured it out, and they ate it again, and so we finally, I went to town and bought up every kind of mouse trap that I could find, set them all out here, and that seems to have settled it for now.
You need your barn cat.
Yeah, we did have a cat that used to like to hang out in here, but it didn't just catch mice, it deposited other things in there. It was all organic, but it just wasn't very pleasant. I'd like to go on down to the movable houses now. Oh, one thing I'll just mention, John's son, my nephew, has been working on a design for a battery-operated baby lettuce, baby greens harvester, and so this is a prototype, and he's hoping to put it into production and market it. But this just pulls the greens in, and then
No, that's what I'm trying to say.
Doesn't dry out the blocks as much. So that was just to give us extra shelf space for our soil blocks. Of course, in the summer, our roll-up side is out, and so it's just open all the way out there from the inside. That's Misty. So we, after setting up this fixed hoop house over here, when I came to the farm, brought some more, a little bit of capital, and we wanted to expand, and so we decided to go with movable hoop houses. Those of you who have read Elliott Coleman know that he's a real promoter of the concept of the movable hoop house. So we took the new organic grower. The Winter Harvest Handbook hadn't been published yet. This was about 4 years ago. So we took the new organic grower, where Elliott had fairly detailed illustrations and descriptions of his movable hoop houses, and we followed that pretty much to the T. Again, we were using a TAEP grant to help us, and we set up what we call M4. These movable hoop houses we call M1, 2, 3, and 4. So we started with M4, and then did M2, and then M1, and this one M3 last. So we did M1 exactly as he said, and we were about 2/3 of the way finished on M2 when Elliott Coleman came to town. And well, let me explain what his design was. Annette, could you just? Right, no, I guess I can carry this down there. I want to show you on M3 here how the design works. What we have is an angle iron that's inverted. It's setting on posts that were set in the ground, and on top of each post is a caster with a ball roller on it. It was quite a job to get all those posts in the ground, because they have to, if you're going to be rolling the angle iron over them, they have to be exactly in line, and the design used a piece of wood along the base there that would bolt into the bow and then into the round post. So there was a piece of wood here, a 2x8, that had a bolt going into the bow, another bolt going into the ground post. So we were wanting to make sure that the holes would line up. When we moved it to the next position down here, we have 3 positions for each hoop house. So to have all these exactly in place, level, and the same distance apart from each other, it was getting a little bit close to rocket science for us. So it was a challenge to get them all in, and it's just a lot of work to dig all those holes and put all the posts in, and we cemented them all in. So when Elliott Coleman came to town, we were excited. We had pictures, and we wanted to show him what we were doing, and he was happy. He said, "That's great." He said, "I've got a better idea, though." So the better idea was this one up here. We liked his idea too, and so we decided to go with this one. And what his idea was that rather than, well, you can see if you can take that out, you can see these wheels. They're the wheels that go on a chain link gate fence, and they're just set on a pipe, and you just roll it. It moves very easy, a lot easier than those ones down there, and it has a lot of advantages. But
How do you secure your pipe to the ground? Just rebar from the place?
the pipe is just laid. Yeah, it's just laid. And you can, if you want, you can just take out the pipe behind and stick it in front. But it's easier just to leave it there all the time. we just laid it out and left it there.
Does the pipe sink into the ground much when it's muddy or from the weight?
Not too much. You can see the pipe looks like it's partially buried, and I think that's just something that happens over time. Dirt is dug up around it. Yeah.
So you just, when you get ready to move, you just kind of fluff the pipe a little bit, or
You can.
don't need to do that.
This last time we did, we just moved it like it was. You do want to. We did check to make sure that the distance was the same on both sides, that the pipe hadn't been moved somehow, and it was pretty much the same. It did kind of go in a little bit in the middle down here. We were in a rush and we said that's fine. We just did. Yeah, it wasn't a big difference. I think it was 3 inches or something like that.
And it didn't matter.
No. But as we started using this, we also found that there were things about this design that we didn't care for too much. One was the cost of the wheels. They were about $35 a piece, and of course you have to have a wheel on every bow on every hoop house that you build. So that's a fairly large expense. Another thing was that those wheels keep it up off the ground, so that you have to have this skirt that we sandbag down. That's not too bad, but we felt like it didn't seal up as well, and weeds start growing inside, and it's harder to clean them out under the skirt. And we just didn't feel like it was as neat as we'd like. Another thing we learned on this one was we used a wood baseboard, and that wood is not strong enough to keep the wheels in place. With these Atlas hoop houses, the bows are cambered so that they want to pop out. And if when we go across the road, you might want to take a look at the M4 down here that doesn't have the plastic. You'll see that the bows are kind of out like this. That's their natural position. We've got them out like that because we're working on them right now. But when they're in place, there's pressure that wants to pop out. And so we found that our wheels our wheels pop off, and we usually, when we're ready to move the hoop house, we've got about half the wheels that we have to put back on the track before we're ready to go.
Did you come up with a solution for that?
Yeah, we came up with a third design. So, taking all those things into consideration, we came up with the design for this hoop house here. What we did here is we liked the angle iron idea because it provided a strong, sturdy base on these other ones, and so we took the angle iron and it's in like this, and the bow is just setting on top of the angle iron. Now on M1 and 2, the angle iron is like this, and so we had to weld a nipple on the top of the angle iron for the bow to set on, and then have a bolt that went through the nipple and the bow to hold it in place. This way, this design simplifies things a lot because the angle iron is like this, and the bow is just setting on the angle iron, and we have a single bolt that goes through the bow and then the side of the angle iron. And then you can see the bolt extends out here about 5 inches. The reason for that is that when we want to move it, we take a pry bar and a brick or something to lever it on, and we just lift it up and we pop a pneumatic wheel on there. And we're using a 10-inch pneumatic wheel. They cost about $5 a piece, and you only need one set of wheels for however many hoop houses you're using. And it moves pretty easily. It's not quite as easy as this one, but it still moves easily. The other thing we really like about this design is that when you're not moving it, your angle iron is setting down on the ground, and so it seals it off nicely. You don't have this skirt to deal with.
So what did Elliot think of that?
Well, we did get to share that idea with him later. We met him again, and we shared the idea with him, and he really liked it. He had, he thought he would try it on his next hoop house. He had some different. He didn't like the idea of these bolts sticking out here. He was afraid people would trip on them, stub their toe on them. He was thinking to have his bolts going inside and have the wheels on the inside. I think
you'd be more inclined to stumble on them on the inside than on the outside.
Well, that's how we feel. I mean, you'd have to be walking very close to the hoop house, and you're just not going to do that out here. So we're happy with it like this. I want to point out one other feature on the hoop house, the movable ones. We've made them with an end wall that has a cross piece that's about 2.5 feet off the ground. We did that because we wanted to be able to move the hoop house over things that were in the ground. When we were over at the other hoop houses, I mentioned one reason for moving a hoop house, and that is to give your soil opportunity to experience the natural freezing and thawing, sun and rain, etc. The other reason for moving a hoop house, which we feel is probably the primary reason, is for efficiency. For example, you have tomatoes that you want to take as far as you can into the fall or early winter, and you're also wanting to grow greens for the winter, let's say spinach. If you have a fixed hoop house, you've got to make a choice. You can't do both. At least you can't do the whole hoop house with both. You've got to either do part of the hoop house with one and part with the other, or just choose between one or the other. With a movable, you can have both worlds. You keep the tomatoes and plant your greens outside. The greens are fine with a slight frost, and when you do get a frost that takes out your tomatoes, then you pull out your tomatoes and move the hoop house over your greens. And then you can do the reverse in the spring. So we feel like that makes them much more efficient in the use of space.
Is it hinged or just loose?
This is loose. We have a purlin here that we roll this up on in the summer, and then we have some pieces of wood that are attached to the bottom of this. We just swing those out and set this rolled up purlin on those so that it allows extra ventilation in there during the summer. Because you can see we have all of these beds going north and south rather than the length of the hoop house, we've placed our doors on the north side, and so we have our walking access on the north. And in this hoop house that we're retrofitting in M4 that we're redoing, we are planning to actually not have a door on the end wall, so that this piece can go all the way across. We're thinking that will help to keep the hoop house sturdier when we're moving it, and help to just tie the ends together. That's a disadvantage we found with the door in there. That corner wants to pop out. Yes.
When you move it, how do you move it?
I'll tell you in just a minute. Yeah.
What size is this?
These movable hoop houses are all 30 by 48.
Is it anchored anyway besides the anchor line?
Yes. Yeah. The anchoring is very important. I don't know if how many of you subscribe to Growing for Market magazine, but a few months ago they had a picture of somebody's movable hoop house on top of the barn. They can move further than you'd like, so it's very important to anchor it well. What we have done to anchor ours, I don't know if you can see because it's kind of behind the post, but we've got a T-post here. And you can look in these, and actually you can look in that one up there. We've got a T-post on every other bow, and then on the end wall we've got 3 T-posts as well. So it's just a T-post in the ground with a pipe strap holding it to the bow. But it's worked so far for us.
So you do reset those T-posts every time you move it?
Every time we move it, we have to pull out the T-posts and pound them back in. It's a process that takes about a day to take it apart and move it and put it back together again. When we move it, we try to round up every hand we can find on the farm and say push. Everyone grabs a bow and we push it. You can, this one and those one, this one here can move with 8 people. Will move it easily. This one up here will move with 4 people very easily. The 2 designs down there need 8 to 10 people. So you can.
Is that the suggested way, by people or not a tractor?
You can do it with a tractor. The reason we don't use a tractor is we don't have a place on either side to put a tractor in. So we just use people power. You can invite your friends over for lunch and say, help us move the hoop house now. Have a little party, hoop house moving party. This last time we moved this one, we didn't need to do it, but we have an open house twice a year for our customers, and we like to get them involved in the farm. So moving the hoop house was one of the things we did with them this last time.
Are these the limits for movable, or you could get bigger, wider, and longer? People have gotten bigger. They've had, I don't know if I've heard of one larger than 30 feet wide, but they have done it longer. I think this is about the max we would want to do. It works good for us, but especially if you're using people power, I don't know if you'd want to get much bigger than this. Trying to remember something.
One other trade-off, sorry, you mentioned size just then, as opposed to fixed and movable. I guess cost is one of them too. what else do you balance beside it? You talked about the advantages of exposing climate, but what other trade-offs are there? Are they more costly per square foot because of how they're built a little bit?
Well, this one was, but this design here, I don't think is. I think it would be the same, or yeah, probably about the same as a fixed hoop house. Trying to think. I think the main advantage that we see is just what I mentioned about the efficiency. Any other questions?
What are you using to seed the narrow rows?
To seed the beds?
Yes.
We use for these we use the Johnny's multi-seeder.
The 6-row?
The 6-row, yeah.
Have you been happy with it?
Yeah, you need to have a pretty fine seed bed. If you have pebbles even this size, they sometimes get jammed in it, and it wants to stop. But it does a pretty good job if you just have to rake it nicely. We use the Johnny's bed preparation rake. We have a 30-inch rake that we use to rake the beds. We've got these beds here have lettuce that's just sprouting right now. Any other questions? Yes.
Have you done much with the row covers inside the hoop houses?
Yes, we use the row cover inside the hoop house every year. And
What temperature will that? Have you found that goes down to? For winter things, I guess it goes down as low as you need it to. Do you use plastic or the sponge?
we just use the floating row cover. We have found that a medium weight row cover works good for us in every application. We're trying a little bit with some lightweight and some heavier weight, but we're pretty happy with the medium weight, and it seems like it's easier just to stick to one thing rather than having a range. What we're using allows us 70% light penetration. What we do, you can see in each of these hoop houses, we have a row cover on this edge here, on the south edge, and so we set in wire wickets and then just pull the row cover across them. We're not totally satisfied with the wire wickets. They over the winter they work their way loose and come out, and they're a little bit of a pain to work with. We've in growing for market again, people have been using cables that they stretch the length of their hoop house and pull the row cover over the cables. We're wanting to try something like that, but we haven't. We're hoping to get something like that set up in the new hoop house this winter, but we haven't gotten there yet. That again is one thought on the end wall here, connecting it all the way to the other bow. That will make a sturdier thing that we could pull a cable on than the current end wall design. Yes.
Do you irrigate? It looks like you do use above ground here. I can't see in there.
We do both. We use drip tape and sprinklers. The drip tape seems to, when you're doing baby greens, it can get in the way sometimes when you're trying to harvest or other things like that. So we don't use it so much on them.
So you sprinkle inside your hoop houses?
Yeah,
You
we just
sprinkle
set up a
inside?
sprinkler inside.
Like that style right there?
Yeah. That one will do almost the whole hoop house in one shot. We could run a whole acre of sprinklers or more off of that.
Is that total gravity fed?
Yeah. We do have we designed it so that we could put a pump in the line if we want to, but we haven't yet.
Since you're using surface water, do you have to monitor water quality? What do you do on that?
From what perspective are you
E.
thinking?
coli, whatever.
We don't monitor that. We don't have cattle or anything like that.
Nothing has access to it.
Yeah. I mean, of course, it's wild animals have access to it. But no, we haven't done anything about that. We do rinse most of our produce in the barn before we send it to customers, and we have a UV filter on our water line in there. We wanted to make sure that Any other questions? I think we can move across the road and I can show you the quick hoops. Is that quick hoop uncovered there? Okay. We're using metal and plastic quick hoops. The quick hoop is it's the half-inch electric conduit, and you just buy it at the hardware store in 10-foot lengths. And we started out with the plastic, and then Johnny's got their bender, and we last season we got the bender and bent quite a few metal ones. And we have the metal ones here and the plastic ones across the road. I think I'll talk a little bit more about the difference between the two, but if you'd like to see the metal hoops, they're these hoops right here, and we have some more down here and have the metal. Look at that.
4-foot size?
No, they have a 6-foot span. And we basically put one roughly every 5 feet. Okay, let's go and I want to point out these quick hoops. I want to point out these quick hoops down here with a single row cover over 4 sets of hoops. And then they're bagged down the center between 2 of them. I mean, between the second and the third. I want to talk more about that idea when we get across the road. But that's the system we're moving to when we're doing field crops under the quick hoop. We don't have our quick hoop set up across the road. We've just got a couple sets over there. And so I wanted to at least have something for you to see here, and then we'll talk about it more over there. These are artichokes.
Oh, they
And
are.
we'll be harvesting them in the spring. It's something that we're just trying out. We've done it. We've tried for 3 years, and this is our 3rd season trying them. And the first season was not very good. Our last year we did a little bit better, but we still lost most of them. we're going to try again this year.
With what?
What have you done?
I think it was disease and cold. Last year we grew lettuce in with the artichokes like this, except that we have planted the lettuce earlier this year, but they are not a beneficial combination. We had a lot of white flies and things on the artichokes, so we're wanting to get the lettuce out. But still, when the artichokes are small and the bed's mostly empty, we just thought it would be good to have something productive in there with them. We'll just see how it works this year. The plants that survived produced a lot of artichokes, and it was really good. We enjoyed them.
So are you going to? Is this hoop house going to be down here when?
I think it's going to stay down there most of the winter.
Okay, so these are going to be out. Are you going to cover them?
No, I'm going to put these under quick hoops. Yeah.
So the quick hoops directly in the ground, or do they have some kind of like rebar or something?
The metal quick hoops just go directly in the ground. You can just push them in, provided your soil isn't too hard. If your soil is too hard, again you can take your pry bar. It has one pointy end. You can punch a hole with that, and then set your quick hoop in with that. But that's one thing we like about the metal ones. You can just punch them straight in. That makes setting up a lot less involved than the plastic ones.
Have you had this lettuce covered? Has it been covered any time?
Yes, I just pulled the cover off of it actually before you got here. Last night. We had it covered when we had this last frost, and I'd want to cover it up if it was getting cold again like that.
What was the timeline? The movable house was here, and then in the middle, and then it's down there, or no? Or this was all?
We have generally moved our hoop houses about once a year.
Oh.
Yeah, because it does take like I said, about a day to get it ready to move and then put it back together again.
So this was just planted on the ground without the hoop house?
Yes, yeah. This year, as I said, we're just transitioning into year-round growing, and so we're still trying to get our system figured out. But this year we had tomatoes in the hoop house, and we took the tomatoes out and we're replanting other things. That's not probably the most efficient way to use the hoop house, but while we had the tomatoes in there, we were wanting to get winter stuff in the ground, and so we did these things here. But we have other winter greens that we're wanting in the hoop house that we're putting in there now that we took the tomatoes out. So.
You haven't done any of your metal, your movables yet with metal. Is that right?
This one we've replaced some of the sides with metal.
Okay.
We still have not replaced the top because the wood on the top seems sturdy enough to get us through this winter, and then we'll replace that. We haven't replaced the ends. That's too big of a job for this, before this winter. But eventually we will be replacing all the wood on all of them. Okay, let's go on across the road. Talking about the things in the field here. And before I talk about the things in the field, I think I'd like to just mention the fence. I don't know how many of you are familiar with this kind of fencing, but we have found it to be 100% effective with deer. I won't claim it on anything else, but it really works with deer. This is the first year we've really had deer getting into our brassica field, and they in the past they didn't seem to have an interest in it, and we didn't fence it, but they were getting in this year, and we didn't want to lose our crops, so we fenced it. But what we like about this fencing is that we do it very flimsily on purpose. We just have the T-post in the ground with an insulator on it, and we just hang the fence from this insulator and leave it loose on the bottom. We leave it so that it goes out a foot or two underneath, and that way we can just lift it up and duck under and get in at any point. We don't have to have a gate somewhere. So we like that. The other thing is that if you're working in a particular section, you can lift the bottom up and just hang it up here so that you can duck back and forth more easily. Or you can take it down easily like I did here and just stretch it out there, and it just takes 2 minutes to bring it back and set it in place. So it's a cheap, effective way to keep the deer out. And we move it around with our field every season, so it's a lot less money than putting a permanent fence around the whole field that you have to maintain, keep it weed eated, et cetera, et cetera. So,
what's the life of it?
The life of it, I don't know. It does deteriorate. After 5 years or so, you'll start getting holes in it. We repair a lot of those holes with zip ties and are still using those older fences. So I don't know when it's going to give out completely. When it's down on the ground, we tend to get holes in it, weed eating around it or mowing too close to it and that sort of thing. But again, when we started out, we were using ground staples to staple it down to the ground, but we've gotten looser and looser over time, and we decided we prefer it that way. And so now when we're wanting to weed eat or mow next to it, we just hook it up here and work and then drop it back down again.
What is it, 8 foot long? 7 foot? How tall is it?
It's 7 foot tall.
7 foot.
Yeah. We use 8-foot T-posts, and the fence itself is 7 foot. I think the cheapest place I've found to buy it is a place called deerbusters.com. What we have in the field here, we have 2 rows of Brussels sprouts, then Savoy cabbage, the regular green cabbage, and a section of red cabbage, and then we have Chinese cabbage in the next 2 sections down there. Broccoli, lacinato kale, collards, curly kale, collards, Siberian kale, and then a couple of rows of miscellaneous things. The last row there has daikon radishes in it, and then there's another kind of radish in the next section up there. We have Yukina Savoy here, and we have bok choy a little bit further down. Just a mix of things in those last 2 sections. I think the Yukina Savoy, we did not get it covered in the last frost, and it should have been. It's showing a little damage. Someone was asking about when we start planting these things. We start the Brussels sprouts and the cabbage the end of July. We start seeding them, and they're ready to transplant the first part of August. The broccoli comes next, and then we start doing the kale and collards. And then we did these things down here last. They're relatively recent. Um, in Elliot's books, The New Organic Grower and the Winter Harvest Handbook, he has some very nice charts showing the length of time things take to grow in the winter. Because as you go into the winter, and the days get shorter, the plant is going to require longer and longer to mature. The basic fundamental trick to getting a crop that will take you through the winter is to get it to size by now. If you don't have it to size by now, you're not gonna have anything to start out with. And this field here is going to be supplying us up through March. Not with everything. The Brussels sprouts will mostly be done in December, maybe some in January. The cabbage, the same. The broccoli is going to be done before that. The broccoli is not as cold hardy as the other things. The cabbage and Brussels sprouts are very cold hardy. The broccoli is the most sensitive thing in the field here, I think. The kale and collards are going to last through March. We'll be harvesting off them until then. The daikon radishes are very hardy. The Chinese cabbage is very hardy also. The bok choy and the yucchina savoy are hardy, but not as hardy as the daikon, for example, or the kale. Yes.
What was the name of the book and the author again?
The book is, the author is Elliot Coleman, and he has 3 books, and we have all 3 available for sale if you're interested. It's the Winter Harvest Handbook.
Hey, would that book tell you in what intervals to plant everything in the field?
The science on that is not there yet. He has a chart that shows on a normal 40-day, a plant that would have a 40 days to maturity. He has a chart that shows if you plant it at this date, it will be ready to harvest at this date. So you have to take that chart and kind of fly by the seat of your pants for whatever you have, and just get your own experience. But the science of for each crop and when you plant it, when you can harvest it through the winter, that's not there. Yeah.
Is this about an acre?
This is just a little over half an acre.
Half an acre.
Yeah. We also have half an acre of carrots up there. So we do carrots and the brassicas in the field through the winter. Just a tip on the carrots, we're starting to become famous for our carrots. It was not something we ever aimed for, but winter carrots are very sweet. The cold sweetens them up, and we can grow carrots in the spring or summer, and they're not the same thing as our winter ones. So that's something our customers just keep. They can't wait for the carrots to come.
You sow those around 1 August, and they ready about 1 August.
We sow those carrots. We found that we have a window of about 2 weeks, the last part of August, or maybe even 10 days, the last part of August, that we need to get those carrots in. If we get them in before that, they'll be too mature. If we get them out in after that, they won't be mature enough. But we'll be able to harvest off that field up to or maybe into March a little bit.
You have to cover all of this before winter's over?
Yeah, we do cover it all. Yeah. the cabbage and Brussels sprouts could maybe get by, particularly the cabbage could maybe get by without some covering, but the covering is, I wouldn't recommend it. The carrots we also cover with a row cover. You can cover them with straw as well, but it's a lot of straw. So,
Once you cover it, you don't have to mess with it, except to pick it. You have to go back and take it off and leave
yeah,
it.
you have to. I mean, yeah, you don't mess with it unless you're picking it.
Right, so that's what I mean. So once you cover it, just wait for it to be ready to be harvested.
Right. We start at one end of the field and we just keep pulling the cover back and work our way down
onto the cover?
Pardon?
You use hooks onto the cover or straight down?
Not on the carrots.
Okay.
On this field we do, but on the carrots we
Right on
don't.
the carrot.
Yeah. And we've used row covers straight on the cabbage and Brussels sprouts too, without heat.
How do you fertilize it, since most of this stuff is pretty heavy nitrogen feed?
We divided this field into three. This field is 300 and I think it's 340 feet long, and we've divided it into 305-foot sections with a 10-foot break between each section. We found that using a quick hoop that long it's not practical. You can see we have a long one up there that went the whole length. That's because we've got lettuce and some Swiss chard and some escarole under that, and we're just working our way up and taking the cover off as we work our way up that field. But in general, we found that roughly 100-foot long is more practical than a whole length. So generally, when you're harvesting, you'll want to take the cover off the whole section that you're harvesting.
Your cabbages and your Brussels sprouts don't seem to have a lot of insect damage. Was they cover when you were growing them, or is there special?
No. And I forgot, you were asking about what we did with it. We put compost in here, and we used a little potassium sulfate. That's all. We did a one tractor bucket of compost per 100-foot section on each bed.
These all started on slightly raised beds?
We have a spader. Are all of you familiar with the spader? It's an implement that kind of takes the place of a tiller on the tractor, and but rather than having tines that rotate and the tiller tends to pulverize the soil, the spader has a cam with spades that go in and like this and pull up. So it's not pulverizing the soil. It's not as hard on the soil and it leaves once you've made a pass with the spader, it leaves it kind of raised. It does a very nice job of loosening the soil.
What variety of cabbage do you have?
I'm sorry, I don't remember what it is. My brother does most of the variety selection and seed purchase, and I just don't remember what it is. Someone else was asking that also. We have, on the broccoli, I know we have two varieties, Acadia and another one. I don't remember what the other one is.
What did you call that cabbage?
That one is a Savoy.
Oh, that's the one.
Yeah. let me talk a little bit about the quick hoops. When we want to set up quick hoops, we have a 300-foot tape, and so we stretch it between a rebar here and another one down there, and then go every. Well, let me explain about these plastic hoops. We found that when Elliot Coleman recommends just punching the plastic hoop into the ground, and we tried that, but we're not satisfied with it because if your soil is loose, and in the winter it becomes moist and loose, so your hoops start coming up out of the ground at an angle, and so that reduces your growing space on the edge. And so we decided to use rebar stakes that we put in the ground, and then we set the hoop in over the stake, and when you bend it, you get more of a straight wall coming up out of the ground. So all of our quick hoops over here are plastic with the rebar. So we just lay this tape out, and every 5 feet we drive in a rebar, and we use a depth gauge to make it faster.
Oh, that's clever. See if we can drive down to it.
Just set that on and knock it in until you hit the pipe.
A rock. My goodness. You know what a rock is. Pretty good.
So we just set those in every 5 feet, and then the hoops over them. We were thinking that when we got the bender for the metal quick hoops, we were thinking that we would eventually phase these plastic ones out and replace them all with metal. But just as we started working this season, it occurred to me that I think we'll probably keep these plastic ones here in the field, because Elliot's idea with the quick hoops, his original idea, he likes to use 30-inch beds, and we do everything in the hoop houses and the pads that the movable hoop houses go on. We do everything in 30-inch beds over there. But in the field, we found that it's not so practical to use a 30-inch bed, and with the tractor we can more easily repair a 4 or 5 foot bed. We tried using a 5 foot bed, and we found that it was too wide. We couldn't easily reach into it when we're transplanting, and when you're harvesting, you end up walking in the bed, which we'd rather not do. So we've gone to a 4 foot bed, and I think we're going to probably stick with that for our field. But when you're wanting to set up quick hoops, the quick hoops are designed for, they're 6 feet wide, and so we're not going to have quick hoops that are 6 foot wide with these 4 foot beds. We have a 4 foot bed, and then a 2 foot walkway, and then a 4 foot bed. And you've got to have a space in between your quick hoops for your sandbags to go, and for access. You can't be stepping over quick hoops very easily. So
these are what, 7 or 8? Your length of your PVC?
they're 10 foot.
Oh, they're 10.
Although I guess we cut 1.5 feet off of these, because when we had 10 foot wide row covers, And then we realized that we wanted to use the rebar rather than sticking the PVC in the ground, and so then you...
Really 7.5 then.
Yeah, we needed, if the quick hoop were 10 feet and you have a 10-foot row cover, you're not going to have any overlap for your sandbags, so we cut them off.
What about weed control?
Weed control?
Right.
Don't ask me about that. This part of the field looks a lot better than that part down there. We just never got to it this year. So far, our weed control is pretty much all by hand. We use a wheel hoe and collinear hose and stirrup hose. If you don't know what those are, check out a Johnny's catalog. They're very nice tools, each in their own area. But we are really liking the idea of getting a cultivating tractor. So if we can come up with funds to do that, we're gonna try to do that.
Can you speak a little bit about crop rotation here and how often you might put a brassica back in this spot?
Yeah. When we started out, we were putting our brassicas across the road, and I don't know if you noticed our fields there in front of the barn. We have they also are divided in roughly half-acre sections. So we have strawberries, and then a cover crop, and then the last field is bare. We've sown a cover crop, but it hasn't come up yet. We used to do our strawberries and our brassicas over there, but we had for a couple of years in a row we had a severe problem with black rot in the brassicas. It's a soil-borne disease, and we were doing some reading on it, and one thing they suggested was that you need at least a 4-year rotation. And so we decided to move them over here. And we didn't then, but we've been expanding over here. And we now have 6 half-acre sections over here. And we will be rotating everything every year. Everything will rotate around.
So you're putting in a 6-year rotation?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Over here on the other side, is that the mushroom compost?
Yeah, that's what's left. We got that. I'm trying to remember. It was late spring, I think. So we used that on the brassica field here, and we used it on our winter squash.
You just filled it in?
Yeah. Yeah. I showed you those 4 sets of quick hoops that had the row cover over them. When you're working a field like this, and imagine every bed here has a set of quick hoops over it. I found that if you have an individual row cover on every set of quick hoops, it's a lot of work. And we found that we can stretch one row cover over 4 beds and have sandbags down the center between the second and third set of quick hoops. That seems to work really good. You can uncover 2 beds at once and then cover them back up. But the other thing is that on really cold days, or when you just don't feel like doing the work of uncovering, you can actually go in there and kind of bend over, and the cover is laying on your back, but you can stoop over, walk through it, or crawl through it and harvest. And we end up doing that quite a bit, but it gives you more room to work than just a single cover.
You know what
would be about 35, 36 feet to cover the 4 hoops. Yeah. You know, we are really sold on the concept of quick hoops because to get it's expensive to get a whole field covered with hoop houses. So they're good, but they have a lot of disadvantages too. What I would recommend them more for one-time crops, you know, like your cabbage that you're just going to come and cut once. But things that you're going to be picking the leaves off of, like the kale and collards, you have to keep coming, cut and come again. That's the row covers are a hassle. They take a significant amount of time to set up and take down each season. And anyways, I have spent a lot of time for the last couple seasons, while I'm taking them down and setting them up, trying to figure out, is there a better way? And we're going to be experimenting with something behind you here. I like to call this my Tunnel Express. The idea is to have a small hoop house that's 12 feet wide. It'll cover 2 beds here, and it's 20 feet long. It's the length of a, you know, it's a standard length of angle iron that you can buy locally, and it's using the same basic design as our final design on the large hoop house. So the angle iron will be setting on the ground when it's in use, and then when you want to move it, you pop wheels on it, and I think that it'll be something that 2 people can easily move around the field. And the reason for wanting to move around the field is that it can easily follow your rotation around the field, rather than having to take a rotation through a hoop house. Your hoop house follows the rotation around the field. So it's short so that it's easily maneuverable, and then it's modular. You just set a number of them together however long you want it. So, and the idea is that the end walls are easily snap off. I mean, they just have several bolts, 6 bolts that hold the end wall on. You take the end wall off and then move it. And you'll of course only have the end walls on the 2 outside of the hoop houses. The end walls would stay off over the summer. I'm thinking I'd like to try growing our winter squash and melons under it in the summer. It's probably a little bit short for growing tomatoes and vining crops, but we'll see how it works. We're kind of excited about the idea.
And you're going to cover this with plastic?
Yes, it'll be covered with plastic. And then the idea is that the top half of the door will have a vent in it. And we have tried covering our quick hoops with plastic. Elliot Coleman does that in Maine. We've tried it here, and you know, it's good and it's bad. It's good for the plants when it's really cold, but you know, our winters here cycle between warm and cold. We're going up and down all winter long. And when, you know, to have that plastic on, you know, when it's really cold, and then it warms up, and it's,
Superheat.
yeah, you don't have any way to vent it easily except to take it off. And it's a real pain to be moving that plastic on and off. It's a lot heavier than the row covers, and it's slippery, and it collects mud, and, you know, because you have it in the ground between the rows when it's off, and you're walking on it, because that's how you access your beds, and then you want to put it up, and it's a mess.
Who's fabricating the metal for you?
I'll get to that.
Okay.
But anyways, we decided we used the plastic on our quick hoops one season, and then we decided to forget it after that. We haven't used it since. So that things would do better if they had more cover, but it just the labor of managing it is too much. But with this, you can have the double cover, the plastic, and then a floating row cover underneath. And so I see that as a real advantage, and then it can be vented so that you don't have the problem of overheating when you have your warm spells. So, I'm sorry, what you had asked?
The fabricating of the metal?
Yeah, the fabricator, we got that from Scenic Acres again.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's just a standard dimension that they provide?
It is, yeah. I looked all over, you know, a number of hoop house suppliers, and then found that he had one. So I couldn't find what I wanted anywhere else. I started out trying to make one out of electric conduit, and just buying a 90-degree angle for the top, but it would only give you a 3-foot sidewall. These have a 4-foot sidewall, which I think is much preferable. And the idea on this is that it will have roll-up sides again. It won't have that wind wall. The roll-up side will go all the way down to the ground. But in the summer, the ends would be off and the sides would be rolled up, and it just offer protection for the melons and squash that way. Any other questions?
Is there any particular width, or I know that remake comes in different width. Now, what are you recommending on this?
On the quick hoops? Well, I really like the idea of 35, 36 feet and covering 4 hoops at once.
I'm talking about I said that wrong, like the thickness.
Oh, the thickness.
Yeah.
We like to use a medium weight.
Medium weight.
Yeah. We have tried using a double medium weight, thinking we might get more protection, and we actually had less growth because it kept things colder. You know, they'll cool down, and then they don't get a chance to warm up when it warms up. So.
When you say medium weight, is that like a 1 ounce or 0.9 ounce?
You know, I don't remember the ounce weight, but it's something that'll allow 70% light. That's roughly medium weight. I wanted to introduce my dad in the hat here in the camera.
I may look like a farmer, but I'm really not. Always wanted to be, though. Yeah. So I'm getting the farming through my son.
Okay, unless anyone has anything else.
All right, can you guys join me in thanking Edwin and his family?